be neglected. I won't be denied the pleasure of your kisses, the pleasure of your smile. I think you take for granted that I'll always be here just because I love you. It doesn't mean I won't disappear. I'm missing you, baby. I'm missing you, baby. Thoughts and mellow memories of once upon a time, slowly creeping on me and they linger on my mind. Just let somebody love you. I just don't know why. Whenever I get close to you, you wanna run and hide. Been so long, I'm missing you, baby. It's been so long, I'm missing you, baby. It's been so long, I'm missing you, baby. It's been so long, I'm missing you, baby. Way back in lovers' dance, the road was smooth to romance, and we sing love sweet songs every day. I believe that would stay in my heart. Now it's torn all apart. It's gonna work. I can't stay. I've got to say, I don't believe that you could do me this way. Now don't you understand? I'm in need of comfort, the comfort of your hand in mine, and what I feel inside.
Member of the Lagos State Executive Council here present, permanent secretaries in the Lagos State Public Service, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, our rapporteur, who is also a former Deputy Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, all our esteemed facilitators, invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I say good morning to every one of you all. You're welcome to day 2 of the Lagos State 8th International Climate Change Summit with the theme Adapting Health, Energy, Agriculture, Transportation, and Waste Infrastructure to the long-term impacts of climate change in Lagos. This morning, before we formally commence the program, permit me to quickly recognize one of the paper presenters on day 2, the Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture, Ms. Abisola Olusoya. A round of applause for her, please. Let me also welcome the host Permanent Secretary, Office of Environmental Services, Mrs. Belinda Aderunke Odeneye. You are very much welcome. I've also seen a former permanent secretary, Dr. Bashorun. You are very much welcome, sir. A retired permanent secretary. For some other recognitions in the course of the program, I will accord you all due recognitions. My name is Kunle Adeshino. I work with the Lagos State Government. Shall we rise to have the national anthem? Thank you very much. Please, we may be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me inform us all that if we look at the crowd we have in here, we might be looking at it that it looks not the kind of desired full house, but I can assure you that virtually we have more than enough people. And because yesterday we had a filled hall, in a short while, too many people are on their way. Because of the rain yesterday, people had delays in getting back to their destinations, but several of them are on their way. But a large number have joined us already virtually for day 2 of this program. With your kind permission, we will first take a safety video. Our staying or gathering here is about safety. Like we always say, safety first. Can we have the safety video now?
This is the safety moment. Welcome to Lagos State 8th International Climate Change Summit, organized by the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, themed Adapting Health, Energy, Agriculture, Transportation and Waste Infrastructure to the Long-Term Impacts of Climate Change in Lagos State. Here are a few tips to ensure that you stay safe at this meeting. This is the Grand African Ballroom of Lagos Continental Hotel. This venue has a capacity of seating 500 guests, but due to COVID-19, it is operating at 50% capacity for maximum spacing and for your safety. This venue is also equipped with entrances and exit, which also serve as the emergency exit in case of emergencies. Please note that adherence to all COVID-19 regulations within and outside this venue is important. Maintain physical distance. Keep your nose mask on. Sanitize or wash your hands regularly with provisions made available within the venue. No crowding, no hugging, no high fives. Restrooms are situated outside this hall for your convenience. Please ask ushers for direction. Here is the emergency response plan. This venue is equipped with functional fire extinguishers in case of an unforeseen incident of fire. If you hear an audible alarm or see a visible alarm, please note that it is not a fire drill. We implore you to remain calm, evacuate this building immediately, and proceed to the master point situated outside this hall for head count and further instructions. For medical emergencies, medical personnel are present to attend to your needs. Do not litter. Please make use of the waistbands provided. Kindly keep your nose mask on and cooperate with our safety marshals for your safety and the safety of the next person. Remember, safety starts with you. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources in conjunction with the Lagos State Safety Commission.
Very much. We will go on now to have a goodwill message, which will be in form of a video. The goodwill message will be from the Deputy Resident Representative for United Nations Development Program, Lialem Behanudinko. If we have the video, it's one of the goodwill messages for the Lagos.
Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, Honorable Commissioners here present, members of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Captain of Industry, civil society organizations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press. It gives me greater pleasure to be part of today's historic occasion, the revitalized Lagos Climate Change Summit, aptly tagged Adapting Health, Energy, Agriculture, Transformation and Waste Infrastructure to the longer-term impact of the climate change in Lagos. The theme for this year's summit is most appropriate, coming on the heels of the global devastation occasioned by COVID-19. The theme reaffirms the complex relationship between sustainable economic growth, climate change, and nature. It forces us to not only connect the dots, but to also reflect on the lessons from the impact of the pandemic. In Nigeria, it is a well-known fact that agriculture and food security, water resources, public health, and housing sectors are considered as the most vulnerable to climate change. Mounting evidence shows that gone are those days when addressing climate change might be viewed as an option for Lagos State. No, ladies and gentlemen, it is not an option. It is an imperative for the Lagos State. If we have learned any lesson from the pandemic, it is that the climate change is an urgent, existential challenge that we cannot afford to ignore. Today's summit is a unique opportunity to build forward better in Lagos State. It also presents the opportunity to take stock and acknowledge the giant stride taken so far by successive government in Lagos State in combating climate change, strengthening adaptive capacity at all levels, and most importantly, it offers us the platform to co-create the future. Our beloved Lagos State to develop an integrated roadmap for strengthening resilience across all sectors of its economy. As we move forward to collectively envision the right mix of policies options for such a roadmap, it will be crucial to consider the following 5 points. Addressing climate change within the framework of sustainable development, the SDGs and the 2030 agenda, integration of climate change issues across the work program of several government ministries, agencies, parastatal sector of industry, business, establishment of a dedicated climate fund to address the issues, reducing vulnerability and increasing the resilience of ecosystems and people. Strengthening state institutions and mechanisms, policy, legislation, and economy for functional climate change governance, guiding principles. As vital principles that will further strengthen effort towards addressing climate change in a policy response and strategic way. Over the years, UNDP has been working in close collaboration with the government of Lagos State. This partnership has resulted in the development of Lagos State Climate Change Policy and Action Plan and the Coastal State Regional Consultation Dialogue, both of which have catalyzed exemplary subject of climate action. The establishment of a regional framework for joint action and framework for tackling the impact of climate change in Nigeria by the coastal state and the overall strengthening of climate governance architecture in the state. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, UNDP remains dedicated to support the government of Lagos State in addressing its diverse development challenges towards setting the tone for a greater Lagos by 2030 and in the furtherance of our determination to, to protect Lagosians from the impact of climate change. UNDP is currently working with the state to undertake a climate risk assessment which will feed into the new state climate action plan. I to sincerely congratulate His Excellency the Governor of Lagos State and the entire good people of the state for the demonstration of strong political will, which is critical ingredient for driving the change toward safeguarding the environment, reversing the current rate of degradation, and create a future that is sustainable for future generations. Your Excellency, in conclusion, let me assure you that UNDP remains strategically committed to the partnership. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a successful summit.
Thank you very much. Please let's appreciate Mr. Lealem Behanu Dinku, the Deputy Resident Representative for United Nations Development Program in Nigeria. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please let me also recognize the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Service, University of Lagos, Professor Ayo Asenoa. You are very much welcome, ma. A round of applause for her. Let me also welcome Our Royal Highness, the Erelu Kuti of Lagos, Chief Abiola Dosumu. A round of applause for her. You're welcome, ma. Next on the lineup is to invite the rapporteur for this summit, Professor Babajide Alo, to please step forward and give us the recap of day one of the summit. Let's appreciate Prof, please.
Members of the Executive Council, Lagos State Executive Council here present, the League of Permanent Secretaries here present, our distinguished Royal Highness present, Erelu Dosumu, the distinguished speakers who have been invited to join us. And I recognize, of course, because I'm still serving at the University of Lagos and I want my salary paid, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development Services of the University of Lagos, Professor Ayo Asenoa. You're very welcome. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my task is very simple. Some people were not here yesterday, and we think it would be a good idea for you to have an inkling into what happened here yesterday. The day started yesterday with His Excellency, the Governor of the state, joining us to give a keynote speech, as well as launching, and that was a high point of the day, of the Climate Action Plan for the state, the CAP for the state. And of course, we also recognize that Lagos State is blazing the trail again in Nigeria as the first state to launch a climate action plan. In fact, we said at the point where that climate action plan was launched yesterday, we'll as well close the meeting and go home, because we already have a roadmap in place for the state in dealing with effects and impacts of climate change. But no, the governor, in fact, tasked us that he's expecting that this two-day meeting this 2-day summit is going to come up with recommendations again that's going to move the state forward. Because yesterday it was recognized in the governor's speech, appreciating the output from the summits in terms of the fact that the summits have led the states to blaze the trail in establishing the LASPAC, the Lagos State Parks and Gardens Agency, as well as the Lagos State Water Resources Agency, and so many other things that the summits in the past have actually helped the state in moving forward. The governor, in fact, regretted that there was a lull of these summits for about 5 years since when the last summit was held, but gave assurance that going forward, the summits will remain an annual event at which several different recommendations will be coming out that will help the state to move forward. We then received, because the summit is an international event, we then received a lead paper from a top expert in climate science and climate issues from South Africa. That was Dr. Karadi Wright, who spoke to us on the imperative for action to protect human health from climate change threats and risks. Her paper received a loud applause as it hit the nail on the head in terms of imperative for action to protect human health. And Lagos State is not different in that regard. Then we had a seasoned paper from engineer Aramide Adeyoye, who is the special advisor to the governor on works and infrastructure. She showed us innovations that the state government wants to put in place in terms of buildings and in terms of road infrastructure for the state. Of course, closely intertwined with her presentation was that of Dr. Frederick Oladende. Dr. Frederick Oladende is the Honorable Commissioner for Transport for the state, and he, in fact, led us into what the state government was planning and putting in place for a resilient transportation system for adaptation in the state. And his paper, in fact, put us into the last mile bus situation that we already have been launched in the state. Then we also welcomed the Honorable Commissioner for Science and Technology. That's Mr. Hakeem Pham. Mr. Hakeem Pham session was moderated and chaired by Honorable Rotimi Abiru. Honorable Rotimi Abiru is the House Committee Chairman for the Environment. And together in that session, we also heard from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources on the Eco-Gas project, the initiative being put together by the Ministry of Energy for domestic cooking to stop us from getting into use of firewood and other devices which we know are quite dangerous to human living. Yesterday as well, we had breakout sessions. At the breakout sessions, there was opportunity for people to brainstorm and interact on several different thematic issues. We had 4 breakout sessions. LOMA was in focus, the Waste Management Authority of the state. And then we had LASPAC also in focus. And we had a session on food security for the state, apart from another breakout session on health, which dealt with issues that had to do with strengthening the human, animal, and environment infrastructure for the state. At the end of the evening yesterday, we were able to come up with a number of recommendations coming out of the breakout sessions and coming out of the plenary sessions, which is going to be packaged together as part of the recommendations that His Excellency, the Governor, is indeed waiting for implementation. Of course, the Climate Action Plan that was launched has in place strategies for ensuring that the state continues to remain resilient in its economic activities. So that was how the day went, and we now have today a number of distinguished speakers who would also be taking us through several thematic issues with the economy of the state. And more importantly, at the end of today, we'll be looking at the bottom line, which is climate finance. Climate finance, all of this, if we do and we don't have the money to implement it, we will not be achieving what we're supposed to do. So today, we will be listening and having serious discussions on financing climate change issues in the state, particularly financing the Climate Action Plan that we have already launched yesterday. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Please, let's appreciate the very energetic Professor Babajide Alo. Members of ESCO, let me also welcome the Special Advisor to Mr. Governor on Drainage and Water Resources, Engineer Joe Igbokwe. You are welcome, sir. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go down straight to business, which is to listen to the first paper presentation as well as the discussants. I will go ahead now to first respectfully invite the Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture, Ms. Ruth Olusoya. A round of applause for her, please. She is the lead speaker for this morning, and the topic she will be doing justice to is pathways to enhancing food security and adaptation strategies for climate change. I'll also go on to call on the discussants. The first on the lineup is Dr. Feyi Oni from University of Lagos. Let's appreciate him. Let me also invite a retired permanent secretary who is now Managing Director, Rice Farms, Dr. Olajide Bashorun. A round of applause for him. This session will be moderated by the Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, Professor Toyin Ogundipe, and he is being ably represented here today by the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Service, Professor Ayo Asenua. A round of applause for her. Let me now formally yield the microphone to the Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture, Ms. Ruth Olusoya, who is doing the lead presentation on pathways to enhancing food security and adaptation strategies for climate change. Honorable Commissioner, you have the microphone.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I humbly recognize the Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Drainage, Mr. Joe Igbokwe. I recognize the Permanent Secretary also for the Ministry of Environment, Mrs. Odeneye, Professor Alo, our Permanent Secretary Emeritus for the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Bashorun, the professors seated here with me as well, invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. My name is Abisola Olusoya, the Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Agriculture for Lagos State. I'm here to present a paper on pathways to enhancing food security and climate change action. I'm supposed to have a presentation, and essentially trying to show the role of agriculture and how climate change also impacts agriculture. It is important to start off with the mindset that the root cause of the insecurity we face as a country today, unfortunately, stems from climate change. You might ask me how. The essence of, or the bane of the insecurity we have right now is that you have herdsmen grazing their cattle, moving their cattle down south. It begs the question, why? The fundamental reason is simply because of climate change. As there are more droughts, as there's less rainfall, especially in the north, obviously cows have less to feed on, they have less grass to graze on. It only means that they will move downward south where the rainfall is heavier, and obviously the cows or the cattle can forage. So it is important to be able to link what is happening right now with climate change. It is important to link the insecurity in the country right now with climate change. Agriculture provides more than 70% of employment in the rural populations in Nigeria and in Africa. It means that majority of Africans, majority of Nigerians, especially the northerners, obviously are agrarian. As climate change continues to impact their source of livelihood, we see migration downward south. And this puts additional pressure, especially on a state like Lagos, to see ways in which it can enhance its food security. What is climate change? I guess we all know what climate change is. The weather patterns that we have now have changed. I remember back in the days, maybe from November or October, November, December, January, you experienced some very chilly harmattan seasons. I think that is almost non-existent. From, say, the month of April to July, you experience heavy rainfalls. The pattern has changed. We have what we call the August break. I'm not sure we have August break anymore. And then, on and on, patterns have changed completely. It means that in terms of food security, in terms of availability of water resources, we are obviously facing a security issue here. I would like to enumerate on some quick facts. Globally, temperatures have risen by about 2.12 degrees Fahrenheit. What does this mean for crops? What does this mean for livestock? What does this mean for those on the fields? Obviously, the impact will be negative. Sea levels have also risen by 8 inches. Lagos is below sea level. What does this mean for us? It means we'll obviously encounter flooding every now and then in areas where by right we shouldn't encounter flooding. In terms of ocean warming, obviously 0.6 degrees, the ocean has warmed up more. What does this mean for our fisheries? It means that obviously some fish would migrate away from their area or their habitat, seeking for a more conducive environment. So let's say, for example, you should be catching some tilapia in this particular area, but because of rising temperatures, they would migrate and move elsewhere. It also poses food insecurity. Obviously, you have the shrinking ice sheets, which could also lead to the introduction of new diseases that obviously were never envisaged. Ocean acidification. We are emitting more carbon dioxide, obviously, and not just humans. Even when you consider the number of cars you have on the roads in Lagos, when you consider the number of cars you have globally, obviously rising emissions also means increasing ocean acidity. This means there's going to be a challenge also with ocean biodiversity. Glacial retreat also. Ice blocks are melting in the North Pole, South Pole, wherever, and it also means that obviously the level, water level would definitely continue to rise. And this poses a major threat to cities like Lagos that are below sea level. What will be the effect of this climate change on agriculture? Like I said, for crops, it's going to be a major problem. In areas where otherwise you should have certain foods growing, there's going to be a scarcity. Once there's a scarcity, especially the north that is more agrarian, migration tends to happen more, and we are seeing the impact of that. Lagos is only 3,577 square kilometers of land. Lagos definitely has more than 12% of Nigeria's population, yet the land mass is shrinking. Where are we going to accommodate these people? It is envisaged that by year 2030, it's likely that the population of Lagos will increase to 30 million. How do we accommodate more people when we have shrinking land and we are more food insecure? When it comes to livestock, like I made mention from the beginning of this presentation, majority of what we have happening right now around insecurity is stemming from climate change. When herdsmen cannot have their cattle graze on open fields anymore because of unavailability of forage, they tend to move downwards south, and that is the effect we are seeing right now. In terms of forestry, obviously Lagos as an urban community or as an urban city, you see more deforestation activities. Trees are supposed to absorb the carbon dioxide we emit to release oxygen to us as humans to breathe. But the more trees we cut down to make room for housing, to make room for roads, to make room for other sorts of infrastructure, the less of these trees we have. Trees also are or create habitat for biodiversity, but that is also shrinking. It means there are some animals that should act as checks or should act as balances to certain pests or to other elements, which are definitely disappearing. So we'll definitely have more problems. When it comes to fishery and aquaculture, I made mention of how the fish also are migrating, meaning patterns are making them change also, and therefore we'll possibly see a scarcity with regards to fish. And then proliferation of pests. Once there's an absence of a certain type of species of animal or a crop, obviously pests will also thrive. And glacial retreats, like I mentioned, is definitely increasing the sea level. When I come back to population growth and food security in Lagos, the statistics are easy to see. We say we are the 5th or 7th largest economy in Africa. We have the #1 population as a city also in Africa. It is envisaged also that even though we are the 10th largest right now, that definitely is still going to go up. And as the population of Lagos continues to increase with less geographical mass, there's going to be more pressure, and this is definitely going to spiral into more security problems for us. In looking at the carbon footprint of Lagos, we consider Lagos as the market for sub-Saharan Africa, the largest market for sub-Saharan Africa. What this also translates into as a market, and looking at it from the standpoint of food, majority of the food consumed in Lagos comes from other parts of Nigeria and other parts of the world. This translates into movement of these food items on trucks or some other forms of vehicles. These vehicles obviously emit some form of gases that are not obviously good for us. And also, when you consider organic waste, which is food waste, half of these items coming from other parts of the country get rotten or are spoiled or are degraded before they even get here to Lagos. This constitutes a major issue for us as a state with regards to cleanup, with regards to waste management, whereas this could have definitely been curtailed. What this also translates into is higher costs of food for Lagosians, meaning Lagosians have to pay 3-4 times more than the average Nigerian for food. So you see that with results stemming from climate change, it ends up affecting the pockets of the average Lagosian, and this automatically translates into security issues as well as health issues. What we are focused on as a state, as a ministry, is to have a climate-centric agriculture system. A month and a few days ago, we launched the 5 years agricultural and food systems roadmap. The idea around the roadmap and the key focal point for that roadmap was in reorganizing and restructuring our market systems. As the market for Africa, Lagos has to get it right around markets. What we have currently are 33 major markets in Lagos, 1,000 small markets scattered across. These are not even markets. A lot of them are roadside markets. What are we to do about them? A lot of these markets are illegal. A lot of these markets just spiraled out of the need for someone to begin to sell something by their doorstep, and you had consumers obviously looking into that and patronizing. And then you see a spiraling out of control of this market emerging all over Lagos. This also translates into lack of transparency for us as a state to assess what our people need, where we need to get these food items from, how we can properly negotiate with those other states that are able to provide these food items, thereby translating into something of a food commodities exchange board where there's transparency of pricing, where quality is standardized, where packaging is standardized, and that can also drive investment into the system. So in terms of our smart agriculture, obviously the three focal areas will be to help farmers build resilience and adapt to climate change, for sustainably increasing agricultural production and incomes, and obviously to reduce greenhouse gases and emissions where possible. The strategies we have adopted, obviously we have a climate change unit working hand in hand with the Ministry of Environment. We also have certain projects that we have taken bold steps to sort of curtail the emission of gases and to also look at how we can reduce emission of gases, how we can obviously be more energy efficient. One would be the Immortal rice mill, which is to be the largest in Africa, 32 metric tons per hour. This rice mill would require almost 250,000 tons of rice paddy on an annual basis. This is a huge task when you consider the amount of husk that would be generated. As opposed to using diesel-powered generators or some other form of power, this rice husks can definitely be burned in. After going through the boiler process for steam generation, the rice husk can also be used in a turbine to generate power, which can cut down the cost of running the mill by more than 50%. This is one of the most energy efficient ways of running a rice mill that can make it competitive globally, as well as enabling the average Lagosian to be able to afford a bag of rice. We are working in collaboration with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources to ensure that this comes to fruition. We have the food processing centers, or food production centers as well, where we are promoting organic farming. So we have the Araga site, we have the Songhai farm, which we are working to be able to launch in this year itself. The idea around it is whatever waste is generated from our poultry farms, from our aquaculture fish ponds, and even from earthen ponds, we should be able to use that in terms of biogas production to be able to run these facilities and to promote this sort of technology across states' farms in Lagos. The integrated production system obviously caters to crop production, aquaculture, livestock, ensuring that in terms of waste generated, we convert it to biogas for energy use. And then in terms of primary production, small, medium enterprises going about their businesses, as well as the marketing of food items that are produced, the use of technology for more smart ways of being able to access customers, smart ways of being able to produce better, smart ways of being able to run the system entirely around food production. What is critical to us is to reduce food wastage. Lagos will never be able to, or at least, well, let me not say will never. Lagos will obviously have to look at a lot of ways in terms of how to be able to produce enough food to feed the people. But so long as we keep having migration from the north downwards south, and as the population expands, we will continue to have to find ways to obviously increase food production. But before even going to food production, the foods we receive from other parts of the states, from other parts of Nigeria, how do we ensure that we reduce the wastages? Lagosians consume almost 1 million tons of tomato on an annual basis. More than 50% of these tomatoes get to Lagos rotten. More than half of that will end up in the landfills, which is organic waste that could have been converted to better use. How do we ensure that we reduce these wastages? Like I said, one key area, one key focal point of Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu's administration is to restructure and to reorganize our markets. Also, the introduction of the perishable produce and plastic crates. When you bring in tomatoes from the north, a lot of it comes in raffia baskets. What this means is that the raffia baskets with tomatoes at the bottom get compressed by those at the top, and obviously the wastage starts to happen. But with plastic crates, that compression issue is no longer there. So the introduction of such a simple tool could also cut food wastage down by as much as 30 to 40%. And like I said, food processing centers, the encouragement is for them also to go into organic farming, where every waste generated is recycled and put to use to be able to produce more food. In terms of agroforestry, obviously, it is definitely to reduce soil and water erosion. We have issues with regards to deforestation in Lagos. We have illegal logging happening in the state, with this wood obviously being exported out of the country. But there are ways and means in which we are trying to reinitiate tree planting in Lagos. For every house that is built, it is important that trees are planted. This is a law in a country like Ghana. You cannot build a house without planting a tree. That also has to be reenacted in Lagos. The conclusion, therefore, is agriculture is tied. Agriculture is married. Agriculture requires that climate change policies be embedded in it for sustainability around food security. Like I said before, what we are facing right now is a climate change issue. In as much as we might not like to agree with it, if you sit back and think through of what is really happening, it is stemming from climate change. Therefore, as a state, we also have the Food Market Systems Transformation Policy that will be launched soon. It is ready, but we are just about to roll it out, which would also cater to everything around food, everything around the food market systems in Lagos, and how it should impact on the points of origin around standardization, quality, packaging, and what have you. So for us as a state, for us as a ministry, for us as a people, we need to be able to take climate action. We need to be able to look into our environment and see ways and means in which we can reduce emissions of gases. We need to see how we can reduce food wastages. And I wish us all the best. Thank you very much.
May I request that we once again appreciate the Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture, Ms. Ruth Olusoya. She just did justice to the topic, pathways to enhancing food security and adaptation strategies for climate change. Next, I will invite the moderator, who is the Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, ably represented here by Professor Ayo Asenua. Prof. Ma, you have the microphone.
Thank you very much. I was just going to remind you, when I thought you were going to invite the discussant, that at this rate the moderator would have absolutely nothing to do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture. Thank you so very much for that insightful. Amen. Thank you so much for that insightful presentation on how it is that we can adapt to climate change, which is our reality, and in the course of that also safeguard food security. So that tells us what Lagos State is doing, that pushes us forward. But we have two discussants here who also are going to be adding to the discussion. With their discussion, they set the tone for the overall conversation, which other people have a chance to bring forward. I want to say a very big thank you to you. So we started the session a little bit late, and I think that we would also want to gain time without to assist the sessions that come later to fall in quite speedily. So I would go straight away to invite Dr. Feyi Oni. And Dr. Feyi Oni, I will be asking that you speak for just about some 7 to 10 minutes so that we also have opportunity for people on the floor to make some contributions to this. Thank you.
I equally want to thank the presenter, the Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture, for a thorough job on food security. What I want to emphasize here is the fact that when it comes to food security, there's probably no other state as threatened in this country as this Lagos State government. And the challenges are enormous when you consider the population of Lagos State, when you consider the increasing urbanization process on a daily basis, when you consider the migration of people into the state, and the challenges on accommodation and livelihood, then you begin to appreciate that there are many challenges, but probably the one that is that could trigger further problems without a prior notice, is an accident waiting to happen, is a food threat. Well, in Lagos, it's not just Lagos, it's all over the country, it's all over sub-Saharan Africa. The food security challenge is high. Because when you talk about food security, you are talking about accessibility to food, that the food is sufficient and is of sufficient nutritional value that meets international standard. But the question I want to ask is, how many of us meet this standard on a daily basis? Even when you are comfortable, you're a civil servant, your nutritional needs are not met on a daily basis. And you are probably more challenged when you have many mouths to feed. But my own contribution to this, I don't want to flog what the commissioner has talked about, is the need to take some steps that are futuristic. Agriculture that will meet the food demand and security demand of a population that is roughly estimated to be about 20 million. And we know in another 15 years might be close to some 35 million, will be one that is backed up with intelligence. So we need something like a food intelligence unit where people are well trained, they get all the information they need, and the intelligence will form a kind of decision support tool in planning for the agricultural future. And what do we need to plan for? We want to know the population of the state. We want to know where the arable lands are. We want to know, because we know we are land challenged, we want to know how do we respond to each of the food needs of a people. And it's not something that is done overnight. It must be data-driven. It must be information-driven. And we must have the capacity. We must train over the years. It might be a 5-year project to be able to respond. Because I'll tell you, there was almost a systems collapse when we had the SARS challenge in Lagos. So you can imagine that multiplied, that scaled up when the youth are hungry and we're not responding to their needs. So one, the agricultural system must be one that is futuristic. We are not thinking of here and now. We think of a future, but accommodate here and now as well, with an intelligence unit that is very important and that will kind of form a decision support tool for the management. Then secondly, because of the climate challenge, I don't want to flog the issue of climate. But then again, we need to know that when you are trying to solve a problem that is climate-driven, you don't think of your immediate environment alone. You have to use a kind of holistic, integrated, and collaborative approach. So Lagos State should start thinking about working with the neighbors, with your state, Ogun State, and other states. Until we begin to do that and we think out of the box, we will not achieve much result. Thirdly, we need to invest heavily on agriculture, not the kind of investment we have been doing, buying bulldozers, harvesters. No, it goes beyond that. It is investing heavily in what we call R&D, and has been redefined to be called not just research and development, but research for development in agriculture and other related areas. And when we begin to do that, we want to incorporate all the areas where we have been lacking. We have not seriously taken aquaculture in Lagos State. Lagos State's waters are fished by people from other parts of the world. Our intelligence system is not enough to monitor how this is done. Then, we need a lot of capacity building. The Ministry of Environment is doing quite a lot, but then again, you need to plan. You just need to plan ahead. If you want food security, and you are talking about climate change, somebody said yesterday that the climate has changed. I don't know where that information comes from. The climate has not changed. We have to be very careful. We have a climate in transition, and we don't know what the eventual outcome will be. But one thing is for sure, it is headed in a negative direction, because all indicators have shown that temperature is rising. It's on the increase, and the negative impact of such things are part of the things we are discussing here. There will be winners and losers. Some food items will become cheaper and easily made available, but some will be difficult to work on. So it means the thought about collaborating with neighboring states that have bigger lands and are more opportune, because when you talk about climate change, it's a gradual process. It creeps in, and before you know it, it's there. So if there's going to be an inundation of our coasts, it's going to affect our livelihood. It's going to affect residential patterns. It's going to affect cropping patterns. It's going to affect fishing patterns. So we need to think ahead. And one option I just thought about is carrying along our neighbors to have a regional plan to agricultural production. So Lagos State will do its bit, but we need to integrate with other parts of Nigeria. Just not necessarily southwestern Nigeria. You could be far-flung areas in which they are advantaged, and you could do something to help. It has to be collaborative. And finally, I want to talk about this capacity building in the field of agriculture. There have been novel developments all over the world. We cannot just sit down at our end here with the threat of climate change and get a wishful thinking that things will get better. Things never get better in a challenged environment, particularly with the kind of population we have in this part of the world. Sub-Saharan Africa is challenged. Most parts of West Africa are challenged, and Lagos is doubly vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oni, for adding those thoughts to the discourse that's on the ground. I would invite Dr. Olajide Bashomu, a former PAMSEC of the Ministry of Environment, who is the Managing Director of RISE PAMS, and he will again take this conversation forward by adding his own thoughts.
Thank you very much, moderator. I want to join you and Dr. Oni to commend the Honorable Commissioner for the very brilliant lead paper. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2009, the FAO, that's the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, introduced the concept of climate-smart agriculture. This concept had 3 wings. The first is we have to try to improve productivity and production, and then we need to adapt agriculture to the changing climate. And thirdly, we need to try to mitigate the effects or the impact of agriculture on the environment. This is important as a background to helping us dimension our problem in Lagos and finding solutions to it. The Honorable Commissioner has rightly identified the noticeable impact of climate change on our agriculture, ranging from high temperature, increasing temperature on soil, water, and air, emerging new diseases, diminishing soil fertility and yield of crops, reducing catches of fishes, and also destruction of ecosystems and loss of biodiversity. It's important for us to note that of the 3,577 or so area of land that we have in Lagos, less than 20% is actually available for agriculture. What this means is that we have to begin to think about smart agriculture or enterprises that require minimal area of land. In fisheries, for example, we have to think about aquaculture, fish farming. In livestock, we have to think about maybe livestock husbandry, poultry, and so on. And in crops, we have to think about vegetable farming, horticulture, and so on, so that we reduce the pressure on land and more people can go into the production. Now, to be able to solve or mitigate the impact of climate change, there is need to address certain issues. I group this into 6, principally. The first is we need to increase adaptive research in Lagos. This is by way of getting technologies that are smart, adapting them to our Lagos environment, and leads to the second point of intensifying agricultural extension service delivery. Because the fact is that the level of technological application to agriculture is low in Lagos, even being an urban or metropolitan area. The bulk of the people involved in agriculture are not as lettered as we should be. So their access to information, access to technology is limited. That is on one part. The other part is probably the ability to adopt the adapted technologies. This is where extension service delivery is important. So we need to intensify extension services delivery, get more extension agents, use modern tools of extension service delivery, the internet, WhatsApp, and also all social media opportunities. And arising from these two, I will suggest that we maximize or expand the existing farm estates. The Lagos State government is trying already, and they are already on this pathway. Instead of having farms all over the states and in some areas that are not sustainable and over time the farms disappear, we should try to create more farm estates. These are estates or farms in contiguous areas where the impact of technology, the impact of government developmental interventions can be more felt. So we have numerous estates like that in Lagos already. We need to make sure that these estates are fully utilized and more are created. They are along different value chains. We have poultry estates, we have fish farm estates, we have vegetable estates. These are areas we should, try to expand our impact. And number 4, because of the identified or noticeable impacts of climate change, one issue has come to the fore, and that is the issue of risk. Agriculture is becoming more risky. A lot of people, even banks, are afraid to support. So we have to mainstream insurance. Let it be in the policy of developmental policy of the ministry to make sure that agricultural insurance is a key point of intervention in support to the development of agriculture. And following this is improved access to finance. We said that farmers adopt low level of technology. One part is the fact that these technologies are not available to them, and to those who the technology are available to, they do not have the means to adopt them. So access to finance is very important. When farmers are able to access finance, they will be able to adopt new technology, they will be able to practice climate-smart agriculture, and the impact on their productivity will be reduced, and they can produce more. And when they produce more, even the mitigation aspects of what they do can be easily increased. And finally, I want to propose that consideration be given to the establishment of a Lagos Climate Change Foundation. This should be like a bridge between the public and private sector. A lot of these problems we have identified are opportunities, in fact, which businesses can tap into and be able to invest in. In one part, we are mitigating the effect of climate change, and at the same time, we are creating opportunities for food security, for other sectors of the economy. So this foundation, and we've had a talk yesterday about funding of climate change resilience and so on. So this foundation will be the body that will even measure the various milestones set in the climate action plan. And when we come back next year, we can have specific, measurable steps that have been taken and results that have, that have come out of those steps. So for now, I think these are issues that we can discuss further, particularly, when it comes to developing policy initiatives and action plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Basho. I have to say that this has been a really, really wonderful session, very succinct, highlights of what we have done, what we should be doing, and that's the direction that I would want, the floor discussions also to go. Each of the discussants were very specific. They gave us recommendations that are actionable, and they were very pointed. In fact, they gave us 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that those who will be contributing from the floor will be just as succinct, so that it's actually actionable recommendations that we are going away with, and insights that, information that deepens our insights. So I would, we have about 10 minutes to go to this session. I want to invite contributions from within on the floor, as well as our participants who are online, if we have anything from there already been aggregated. I think that I can take 2 to 3 comments from the floor, provided each person just commits to about 60 seconds, just 1 minute, pointed. Thank you very much. I think I see one hand. Do I see another? I see 3. I think I've got the 3. So I have 1, 2, and 3. And very succinct, please. 1.
Good morning.
Could you please just introduce yourself? And
Okay, my name is Folawemi, and first I'd like to say a big thank you to the Honorable Commissioner for doing justice to that. That was very brilliant. You mentioned something about using plastic crate instead of basket. And there's been one thing about sustainability. It's most times we solve a problem, we create another 9. And so, just like Dr. Oni has rightly said about an holistic thinking, a system kind of thinking. So I'd like to ask, are these biodegradable eventually, or what's the plan around that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Like the moderator said, let me go straight to the point. I have 2 questions for you, the Honorable Commissioner. Number 1 is, from your presentation, you alluded to the fact that the farmer header clashes we are having is a direct consequence of climate change-induced migration from the north. So my question is, don't you think Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder, given that the bulk of the food we have in Nigeria is from the north? That is number one. Number two is that there has been a series of threats to stop the supply of food down south from the north. And as we know, northern Nigeria supply the overwhelming majority of food we consume in Nigeria. What is Lagos doing to avoid this or to address this? Thank you very much.
Please.
Okay, my name is Maximus Ugoke. I'm the C40 State Advisor for Lagos. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's for the Honorable Commissioner. And the third question.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Anthony Akman, and I work with the Pan-African Vision for the Environment. Very quickly, Honorable Commissioner, I saw in your presentation where you talked about ocean acidification and sea level rise. I just want to quickly suggest and recommend one solution. Currently, the United Nations has declared 2021 to 2030 as the decade of the ocean. And this is because globally they want to increase the awareness of citizens to ocean issues and ocean resources, and for them to understand the impact of the ocean on the lives of citizens and our own impact on the ocean. So I'm suggesting that there's need. Currently, I'm leading the development of an African ocean literacy civil society action network. So I want to suggest and recommend that Lagos, being an ocean-surrounded state, should have an ocean literacy program. Thank you.
So thank you very much, sir, for the last recommendation. That wasn't a question, it was a recommendation, so we'll definitely look into it. Thank you. To my sister over here, you asked about the biodegradable plastics, or if we're using biodegradable materials. In all honesty and sincerity, and that is how I like to speak, where we are right now, we are dealing with raffia baskets. We're dealing with 50% at least maximum post-harvest loss. So right now what we are looking at is how do we reduce this drastically such that the average disposable income for the Lagosian is able to cater to all their needs, thereby enhancing security. What we have currently is to even make use of the plastic crates that we can get our hands on to be able to get this across to our marketers. In other climes, they could be using biodegradable materials, but where our food items are coming from right now in terms of the distance is very long, and right now the plastic crates are the solutions that we see that could immediately be the solution to the problems we have at hand. This is why we are also working with the Ministry of Science and Technology. They have the Agri-Tech Hub, which is also part of all the innovation tech solutions that are coming up. Recently, grants were given to over 20 companies to develop technologies around different sectors. Agric is one of them. Looking at biodegradable materials, obviously, would also be one of them. I'm sure you're aware last week we visited some innovation hubs in Lagos. We would be visiting additional innovation hubs this Friday. And the idea around this also is the youth that we are looking to bring solutions to the fore for us. We would also have to help to tackle the problems we have around agriculture. And definitely biodegradable materials would definitely be the way to go. Thank you. Sir, to the questions you asked around insecurity and what I had said about the massive migration coming down south and what this could mean to food security issues for Lagos. The truth of the matter is, Lagos, as it were, and like Dr. Basharon had rightly pointed out, 20% of the land we have available is only what we have for agriculture. And even that one, there's massive encroachment on these lands by land grabbers for residential or commercial units. This is a major problem. We would always have to partner with other states, and he had also mentioned it, and I think Dr. Femi also mentioned it, to partner with other states around food production. especially southwestern states, southeastern states, neighbors that are closer to us. It doesn't mean we'll negate the fact that we'll still definitely have to partner with states in the north. We are one. We'll partner with states like Kebbi, obviously for rice. We'll partner with states like Kano, because Kano also produces a lot of food that we need. We'll partner with Kaduna, we'll partner with Niger, we'll partner with Kwara, we'll partner with Kogi, Jigawa, and so have you. For the southwestern states, obviously because we belong to the same belt, it is much easier, transportation costs will be less, and you can get the food here faster, you have more wholesome food. So that already is in the pipeline. About 2 weeks ago, Mr. Governor signed the Lagos-Ogun Joint Commission Agreement, which is one way to go around partnerships with sister states. What we also need to understand is it is not even just looking at states within Nigeria. Partnerships have to be had even with other Western African nations like Benin Republic and Togo, definitely for accessibility to food. And I think that is why we have the AFCA agreement, which should actually help. Once you have the free trade agreement in place, it means there can be free flow of food and other products from here to other states or to other nations, and from there to here. Lagos is a mega city. We live in a global environment now, so to think that we can stand alone in this, it is impossible. Also, it is a call for other states to take up the responsibility to develop their state, to develop sectors in that state that can help increase employment, that can help increase stability in Nigeria. Lagos gets to bear the brunt of what happens in Nigeria. Once other states are not performing, everyone migrates downwards south to Lagos. Remember how many people in the Lagos population today are registered residents. How many people in Lagos today pay taxes? Yet we all clamor for better roads, better hospitals, better schools, better infrastructure across board, without thinking where these taxes would come from to accommodate all the changes we want. So it is a clarion call to other states to rise up to the occasion, to ensure that they begin to develop their states so that people can't stay back to develop, and for them to also be able to at least have better incomes to sustain their families. Thank you.
Very much, Honorable Commissioner. This has been a really wonderful session. The point on which you closed was actually one point I was going to add, that we've got to look at the impact of migration into Lagos State in terms of the land available for agriculture and food security. I also had when the Vice Chancellor said to me to come to represent him, I come from a law background, so I had conversation with my nephew who is a farmer, and I said, if you had the opportunity of being at this forum, what would you also want to add to the conversation? So these 2 points I'm making are not original to me, but they actually resonated with me when he shared them. And he said, we need to look at integrating agricultural projects even into the low and middle income housing or slum areas. And that resonated with me largely because sometime last year, my colleague in the Department of Geography introduced what she called urban agriculture, and then got all of us to start farming in our homes, and even people who didn't have farmlands, she started to use, I think, some kinds of plastic bags. And I can say that for the last 1 year, I have not bought ewedu and okra in the market. I have actually been feeding and sweet potato in my little corner. And I think that that's also one thing we need to begin to look at. Then he also said, maybe we want to talk about disaster management by planting flood-tolerant crops in flood-prone areas. So I said, yes, I think this sounds quite right for the theme of this particular session, and I would want to add them. Thank you very much, everyone. This has been very good. It has been a learning experience. We didn't waste time rambling at all. We were very pointed. Thank you so very much.
Let's appreciate the moderator, Professor Ayo Atenua, and all the other panelists, as well as the lead speaker, the Honorable Commissioner for Agric, Miss Abisola Olusoya. As it is the tradition, we'll have a group photograph with this plenary session. Let me invite Permanent Secretary, Office of Environmental Services, and Special Advisor, Drainage and Water Resources with them. As it is, we'll have a group photograph with them before we go on to the next plenary session. Let's appreciate them. Let's appreciate them. Thank you very much. For the next session, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let's also welcome the chairman of the Lagos State House of Assembly Committee on the Environment. He has been with us since yesterday, Honorable Abiru. A round of applause for him. Thank you, sir. We also welcome our special advisor on drainage and water resources, Engineer Joe Igbokwe. You are very much welcome. Go on now to the fourth plenary session, which is on health. The guest or lead speaker is the Deputy Incident Commander for the COVID-19 response in Lagos State. He's a biosafety expert. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as I introduce Professor Akin Abayomi, the Honorable Commissioner for Health. Professor Abayomi will be speaking on the topic, understanding the links between Pillar 2 of the T.H.E.M.E.S agenda. For those who are not very familiar with it, Pillar 2 stands for Health and Environment. He is speaking on understanding the links between Pillar 2 of the T.H.E.M.E.S agenda and Lagos Biosecurity Strategy for a Climate. The panelists include, let me now formally invite Professor Akin Oshibogun. He is the former Chief Medical Director, Lagos University Teaching Hospital. A round of applause for him, please. One of the other panelists is Dr. Oluchi Ikama Okafo, Community Health Department. Dr. Oluchi Ikama Okafo, a round of applause for her. This session will be moderated by the rapporteur, the very energetic Professor Babajide Alo. A round of applause for him, please. Once again, the topic by the Honorable Commissioner for Health is understanding the links between Pillar 2 of the T.H.E.M.E.S agenda and Lagos Biosecurity Strategy for a Climate. Let me now formally invite the rapporteur, who is the moderator for this session, Professor Babajide Alo, to go on and introduce the lead speaker as well. Prof, sir.
Thank you very much, our MC General. Mr. Additional, for that beautiful introduction to everybody that's coming here. This plenary 6 is focusing on health, and we have no one else than the Honorable Commissioner for Health for the state, our distinguished and very erudite Professor Aki Abayomi, who, as everyone knows, needs virtually no introduction. He's been the hard-working fighter of the COVID-19 saga in Lagos State since the year 2020. Please, let's give him a round of applause. He's done so well with respect to keeping the state safe as much as possible from becoming the epicenter for COVID-19 in Nigeria. Professor Abayomi, you're very, very welcome. To discuss his papers, as the MC had said, we have with us Professor Akin Oshibogun. Professor Akin Oshibogun, some people may know, some may not know, is the former Chief Medical Director of the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital. He also is from the Department of Community Health of the College of Medicine of the University of Lagos. Professor Akin Abayomi, Professor Akin Oshibogun, you're very welcome. Together with him is a colleague of his, Dr. Oluchi Nkama Okafor, who is also from that same department. It's not deliberate, but it's indeed the right step to take to bring people who have also been in the front line of dealing with the COVID issue to come and discuss the links between Pillar 2 of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's T.H.E.M.E.S agenda and Lagos biosecurity strategy. We have, and we hope IT will support us, an international speaker, an international discussant, Professor Jimmy Adegoke, who will be joining us from the University of Missouri in Kansas City. Where he is right now is about 3:30 a.m. in the morning, but he has assured us that he's already up. I've been in WhatsApp communication with him, and so Jimmy Adegoke, I hope you are online, and he will also be joining us during this session as an international speaker and discussant of the paper. So without much ado, I want to invite Professor Akin Abayomi to take the floor and take us through his presentation. Professor Abayomi, please. Yeah, we need one.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. In the interest of time, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol and start with my presentation. So essentially, we all know about the theme's agenda, and today we're in Pillar 2, where, it's quite amazing that even before COVID, as Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu was putting together his mandate for this dispensation, he, with all wisdom of himself and his transition council, put health and environment in the same pillar, which perhaps known or unknown to them is a global WHO strategy and paradigm shift, where we're beginning to think of health, not human health, not in itself, but human health as a representation of the health of the environment and the health of the food that you
health system. And atmospheric pollution is contributory to this, though it's not the only cause. The causes are multifactorial. And if we can do something about air pollution, we can drastically reduce cardiorespiratory diseases in our environment. I gave them a few slides. I don't know if Temita is able to show that. And the reason for these slides is just for us to go back to the basics, to look at the levers of climate change, and so that we know that the actions required are indeed multi-sectoral and intergovernmental. I don't know if Temitayo is projecting the slide.
Well, we could ask the IT people if they've queued Professor Oshibogun's slides.
I'd forwarded it to her. Okay, so in order not to waste so much time on that, of course, the levers of climate change include burning of fossil fuels, automobile fuel consumption, and the traffic in Lagos can be horrendous. But somehow today was very light. I estimated I would get here, in some 1 to 2 hours, but I got here within 30 minutes. That was scary. When there's no traffic in Lagos, one gets worried. But those vehicles emit a lot of gases, and we'll see that those gases, the greenhouse gases, contribute to climate change. Of course, industrial fuel combustion and bush burning, domestic firewood, and kerosene combustion. And the mechanism for global warming are basically two. The greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane, form a shield around the heart and prevent the heart from emitting heat. And the heat is trapped under. That is one mechanism. And as the heat is trapped under, of course, glacial ice melts. And of course, the Commissioner for Agri did mention glacial retreat during our presentation. As glacial ice melts, the earth becomes darker. And as it becomes darker, it absorbs more heat again from the sun, so the temperature keeps rising again. So those two factors, that second factor usually is referred to as the albedo effect. Because of the decreased reflectivity of the earth, the temperature is retained, and it has been documented that the temperature increase of the earth has been like 1.2 degrees centigrade between the 19th century and now. And this has primary consequences. The sea level is rising. The ocean is getting acidified because of the carbon dioxide, the nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases, and climate extremes resulting in droughts and floods, which lead to crop losses, crop failures, and food insecurity. Of course, food insecurity is also linked to some health issues. Climate change will be impacting on the ecosystem. Agricultural practices of man will bring him closer to animals. And then, of course, it means we'll be exposed to diseases of animals. Of the 1,400 pathogens known to cause disease in man, 12% are emerging and re-emerging diseases. And 60% of these emerging and re-emerging diseases are diseases of animals. So that justifies the need for us to have this One Health concept, which the Honorable Commissioner referred to earlier. And then, of course, the direct impact of climate change on man will be nutritional diseases, which can be both communicable and non-communicable due to food insecurity, diarrheal diseases as a result of contamination of water sources through flooding, and then, of course, heat stroke and heat exhaustion. So when you go out these days, always have a bottle of water around you so as to prevent heat strokes and heat exhaustion. Of course, changing disease patterns due to interference with microbial habitats because of the increased demand for land. We are interfering with the natural habitats of animals and therefore coming in contact more and more with diseases of animals. So imagine diseases as a result of man's encroachment on the habitats of animals. And for us in Lagos State, what is the way forward? We need to put in place an enhanced surveillance system, through human, animal, and environmental monitoring. So we need to continuously monitor not only human, animal, but also our environment by taking samples from the environment to look at what organisms are now. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you. It's a rare privilege to have the Honorable Commissioner assisting me with the slides. Thank you, sir. So we need to put in place an enhanced surveillance system so that we monitor human, animal, as well as the environment. And I'm proposing to the Lagos State government to make use of the 2 universities in Lagos, to use their departments of public health to serve as public health preparedness centers. The funding required for universities are not usually humongous. Just a little support for those departments, because those departments have a large pool of public health experts who are currently being underutilized, and we can enroll them into this enhanced surveillance system. And the second one, which is research and innovation, while the ministry can fund, the ministry is not in the best position to drive, to implement research because of the bureaucracies usually associated with government ministries. So again, it is very important for us in Lagos State to leverage on those universities that are already in Lagos State with capability in terms of the human capital to conduct research and look for innovative solutions to our health problems in Lagos State. Of course, the states must remain in the driver's seat to regulate the use of human samples and data to ensure beneficence, non-maleficence, justice, the protection of privacy and confidentiality, so that Lagosians are not taken advantage of by I don't know whether to call them entrepreneurs, but by hard-nosed businessmen. So there's a need for continuous strengthening of human, infrastructural, and organizational capacity in the state by investing in training, by investing in equipment, and by investing in the appropriate infrastructure. Lagos State is fortunate. It has probably the only functioning biosecurity level 3 laboratory in the entirety of Nigeria. And that laboratory was instrumental to our being able to make a diagnosis of the current COVID-19 outbreak within 4 hours. So we got the sample, and within 4 hours, we were able to say this is SARS-CoV-2. In 2014, when we had the Ebola outbreak, it took us 3 days to be able to say that what we had was we couldn't even say that it was Ebola virus disease, but we were able to say that it belonged to the filoviridia group of viruses, and then match that with the clinical presentation of the patient and the travel history of the patient to say, oh, this was most likely to have been Ebola. And then we took the necessary steps. But in 2020, within 4 hours, because of the presence of this infrastructure, which the Honorable Commissioner was part of in bringing to Nigeria with the support of the Canadian government, we were able within 4 hours to make that diagnosis. So I think that investing in infrastructure, investing in human capacity cannot be overemphasized. That laboratory has far more capacity than it is being utilized for now. So we need to invest in the human capital so that they can put it to even greater use. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Professor Akin Oshibogun. Of course, our theme, while we're all gathered here, is climate change. How do we adapt to it? And it's very useful to hear that the state government is already investing in health infrastructure that is making us do better than what we used to be like. To hear that within a few hours, we could deal with testing and analyzing for infections that we normally would have taken us 3 days to do is a kudos to the state government. So we will obviously capture this again, that there is need for continuous improvement, because I wouldn't say, and I'm sure the Honorable Commissioner who is in the room would not say that, yes, we're already there. We would wish to have more and more investment and more improvement in health infrastructure for purposes of adapting to climate change issues that are inevitable. I mean, climate change impacts are inevitable. Maybe I can take this off. I already have my 2 jabs, so I think I will be safe to take it off. So I will say that we are beginning to get at issues with respect to how the state can be resilient, because since yesterday we've been talking about resilience. And resilience in health infrastructure, resilience in health issues is so important. Next, I will be inviting Dr. Oluchi Kama Okafo for her insights on the Honorable Commissioner's paper. Does this work?
The Chairman, sir, the Commissioner for Health, Lagos State, Professor, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here. I would like to first commend the Lagos State government for all they're doing, and for a session like this, a time when people can, where minds can come together and issues can be brought forward. The presentation was quite lucid, and a lot of the necessary areas were touched, and I commend you, sir, on that presentation. I'd like to add my voice by, talking about climate change and health with respect to pandemics. The world is not new to pandemics, but we've come just now through, and we still are in a global pandemic. But even while this was going on, other epidemics were going on. We had right side by side. There was our usual ones. We have the usual ones here. We have measles, we have the malaria situation. In other places, we had some cases of Ebola going on, yellow fever. And if you look at all these infections, they're tied to the environment. They're tied to climate change. And there's no louder voice than this, telling us that it's time to begin to take a closer look at how we're handling the environment. And so fora like this are commendable. And even while we talk about having pandemics all around us, it's not just the fact that we have disease to handle, but it's the impact on the individual. Currently in our country, people have been impacted by this pandemic in multiple ways. Apart from the physical, the emotional, the mental, the psychological, people have had to deal with a lot. And then we have our young people who are particularly affected. A lot of cases of suicide among young people, unusual behavior. So when you look at the effects of the pandemic and the effects of disease situations like this on the human situation, then it calls for prompt, quick, and decisive action when it comes to the environment and health. And so I would say that the solutions, like has been alluded here to here, come in collaboration, where the different sectors put together their thoughts and their ideas in a strong collaborative effort. So just like has been mentioned here, the One Health approach, where man, animals, plants are looked at together in terms of that impact, the way they affect each other. And that is where our focus should be. Approaches, strategies that allow the human situation, that of the environment, plants, diseases, to be looked at as one, that interactive environment. So even as we're making efforts towards controlling situations like the pandemic, COVID-19, efforts should be made at collaboration. No unit stands alone here. We now know that the environment plays a huge role in how disease affects man, the impact it has on man. And so it's important to begin to look at areas of importance. Public health. As a public health physician, I've got the training and the wherewithal to address some of these health problems. And so we should begin to place our emphasis on those people that have the expertise to handle situations like the pandemic, environmentalists, people that look at these collaborations. We should place more emphasis on these, as well as research. Research, I believe, has been the reason why the Lagos State response has been so extensive, so timely, and it has met the pandemic just in just the right way. So research, funding when it comes to research, encouragement when it comes to research. Research institutions, like Prof. rightly said, should be encouraged. It should be ongoing research, ongoing funding, opportunities for research, data collection. No amount of data is lost when it comes to situations like the pandemic. And so I think the emphasis should be on efforts like that. And it is research that will inform policy. It will inform decision making. It will inform our next steps, because we need to take the very next right step. So if we place our emphasis on the right professionals, encouraging our institutions, funding when it comes to research, funding when it comes to approaches that help us control our environment, and policy. And along with policy, enforcement. A lot of our people, do not really understand what it means to place a priority on the environment. And I think another sector that will come in is the information sector, to take this message out there, to let everybody feel a part of the efforts towards preventing situations like the COVID-19 pandemic in the coming future, so that we know that we all have a part to play. So these are my thoughts in this subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give Dr. Oluchi another round of applause, please. Because she has brought out one key aspect which our summit is going to capture, and that has to do with data and data generation. And I know that within the biosecurity strategy of the state, data generation and data management through, in fact, the Ministry of Science and Technology is ongoing. We heard from the Honorable Commissioner for Science and Technology yesterday, who alluded to the fact that as part of the mandate of the ministry, they have the Research and Innovation Council of that ministry, whose business is nothing but data and data generation. So within the health sector as well, within the biosecurity strategy, we're going to suggest escalating the issues of data, for planning, because data to inform governance, data to inform policy issues will be very useful. Thank you very much. At this juncture, I believe that Professor Jimmy Adegoke must be joining us from Missouri, from the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I hope he's on. Maybe the IT will enable him now. Is Professor Adegoke on?
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Can I be heard? Can I be seen? Am I being heard? Am I being seen?
Yes, we are hearing you, but
It's a pleasure and a great delight to be in this audience today. I want to congratulate the Lagos State government for bringing back the Climate Change Summit, which We can't overemphasize this. So I will end. I will end with that.
Thank you, Professor Jimmy Adegoke. We thank you not only for staying awake. I think where you are now in Kansas City is about 4 in the morning, but I know that your commitment to our activities in Lagos and you being a Nigerian American has obviously shown in the 4 messages, key messages which you have given to us towards ensuring an adaptability of our health infrastructure to issues of climate impacts and climate effects and all that. You've worked for so long on climate change issues that is not surprising that, in fact, you have taken us into the sustainable finance. How do we get money to finance these projects? Thank you so much, Jimmy, for your insightful presentation. The quote from the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, is also relevant, and we, even though you chose not to read, but we have read it, and we know it is key and very relevant. We will be able to, but before I invite questions, either from those who are watching us virtually or those in the room, let me specially recognize and welcome our White Cap Chiefs. You are very welcome, sirs. Your Royal Highnesses, we thank you very much. We know that the Oba of Lagos is unable to be present, but obviously you are fully representing. So our regards, our highest regards to our Oba. Thank you so much. At this juncture, we have some 5 minutes, or 5-10 minutes, to take 2 or 3 questions, which may be directed to either of the discussants or to the Honorable Commissioner for Health. These are an opportunity to ask Professor Akin Abayomi questions on what he's doing and his ministry is excellently doing with respect to biosecurity for the state. He has warned us, but I don't think the intention is to make us afraid, that apart from COVID-19, more pathogens are hiding somewhere right now. And it's our action or inaction that will wake up those pathogens and they will come and hit us. So I hope that they will hit us as we are already taking steps and actions through a summit like this put together by the state government to prevent more pathogens from hitting us apart from COVID-19. We dealt with Ebola and we dealt with it successfully. Questions, please. Anyone in the room that has questions, please raise your hand. And those watching us virtually, if you have questions, just send it into the chat room. We will pick it up and we will pass it on to the speakers here. Questions? Okay. I see the hand of Erelu up. Any more? So that we'll just take all of them together. Another lady on this side. So we have 2 already. People who want to ask questions. Yes, Erelu Dosumuma.
First of all, may I thank the Honorable Commissioner for Health for that presentation of One Health. And you know, mine is more of a recommendation, because from all the papers that were presented yesterday and today, one thing is very clear that is running through every paper. And as Mr. Governor requested, I believe this is one of the main recommendations that must be taken up immediately. That's the micro landmass of Lagos, the massive urban drift into Lagos, and the fast developing slum areas, which means all these, and they are definitely climate change driven, at least in some areas. Therefore, it is imperative that immediately after this, there must be a forum where we must determine a smart decision on how to protect the future of this mega city of Lagos. Otherwise, I mean, when the pandemic of health strikes, I don't know how we're going to be able to cope. I mean, with COVID, the whole thing was grounded, and we are told that there are many other competing pandemics at the same time, and that, in fact, worse ones may come. I believe we really need to do something urgently to find a smart solution to this mega drift into this micro landmass of Lagos. Thank you.
A round of applause for her. Really not a question, but a comment and a suggestion that we're beginning to see that Lagos is small in landmass and needs to be heavily protected. And suggested a forum immediately after this summit to start questioning and brainstorming on how we can protect Lagos and continue to have resilience in the state. Thank you very much, Ma. The second request for the floor is from here. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much,
sir. Your name, please.
My name is Engineer Monsuro Alagbe. I'm from the Lagos State Building Control Agency, actually from the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development. Actually, that was a great session we just had, and I must thank all the professors and doctors. Just this last week, Friday, the whole world celebrated the World Environmental Day, and the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, in collaboration with the Institution of Environmental Engineers, Lagos chapter, they had a kind of awareness where the higher institutions within the state, the universities and polytechnics, they were involved in a kind of essay competition about the effect of climate change, where some of them won cash awards. The Lagos State University, University of Lagos, and Lagos State Polytechnic, first, second, third, respectively. And afterwards, we had a kind of awareness walk to Agidigbi Secondary School where almost 8 trees were planted. I actually got agitated when I saw the last slide that Professor Abayomi showed to us where a tree and a hand of a woman being were shaking. You know, a kind of ecosystem that we should know that, you know, we should be environmental friendly. And it is high time it got to our, you know, it got to all of us that we should start, you know, it should be something that should be brought to the lowest level of our children to let them know that every activities that one does actually negatively or positively impact the environment. And this should be, instilled in all of us. I'm just trying to, stress the point that all our professors and doctors have made us known today. Thank you very much, sir, and God bless.
Thank you so very much, representative from the Ministry of Physical Planning. That is useful. I'm not sure we will be able to take any more questions, but there is, okay, sir. Please, and that will be the last one, unfortunately, so that we can go for our tea break, see that that's the next item on the agenda, and I know people.
Thank you, Honorable Commissioner, Professor Abayomi, Professor Shivogo, Dr. Mr. Kafo, and Professor from Kansas City. Well, I want to follow right on what the Princess Sedemelu said. We can't stop rural-urban drift. Lagos is economically, upgoing and we're good. People will always come. But the real issue is how prepared are we for this drift? How prepared? I'm a director, my office is the direct recipient of this negative attitude. Supposed wetlands, floodplains are being every day legally and illegally encroached. Naturally provided ecosystems are being depleted. Every day, we are not going after bats, but we're going into wetlands to make money. But at what cost to the environment? I keep saying that every activity or inactivity of mankind has a footprint in the environment. But unfortunately, here in Lagos, everything we do has a negative impact on the environment, because we don't oftentimes look at the properly dimension the impact of what we're doing. Government in itself allocates lagoon for islands. We're not even understanding what are those ecosystems in the lagoon bed that we're depleting. The professor said that every creation has interrelationship. I don't know how they coined it, but we depend on each other. The environment will suffer no negative impact. Whatever you throw into the environment comes back at us. So I think that forum, and we really need physical planning in this. How are we prepared to receive this population? We're a mega city. We're basically reacting. What is our plan into the future for physical development? That will, by the time physical development is gotten right, every other indices, health, works, drainage, will fit into it. So the people lifestyle and how people are developing will have a solution already that is in it. So that forum that the Erelu mentioned is actually very key, because when we are prepared for the numbers, the population, the solution, all these are we are basically reacting now, but we need to now make governance precede development. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Permanent Secretary, Office of Drainage Services and Water Resources, Engineer Lake Conshonende. We're glad to hear that policymakers, those who are in governance, are obviously in the room with us, and they are aligned with the necessity for us to make our state more and more resilient. We've heard that rural-urban migration is inevitable. Everybody wants to come into Lagos. Lagos continues to remain one of the safest parts of Nigeria as of today, and therefore the chances of economic livelihood when you move to Lagos seems to be there. It may be a mirage, but that is the general impression, and so we cannot stop it. So what we therefore need, what you can't stop, you then need to develop strategies to be able to make the place more resilient, to be able to make the place more... There were no direct questions for the discussants, but I want to give them an opportunity to react to what has happened during the session. So, Honorable Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all those very insightful presentations from the panel, and including my very good friend, Professor Jimmy Adekoke, that was able to summarize the discussion so succinctly. I just want to reinforce the Lagos State strategy for infrastructural transformation, at least in health. We're going through a massive infrastructural transformation, and I'd like to make it known that all our new designs are low carbon footprint, at least 50% less carbon footprints than the old designs. We're paying particular attention to low maintenance, low carbon footprint, low energy designs so that we can contribute as an important ministry, and I believe that other ministries in Lagos are following suit. So Lagos is driving a low carbon footprint infrastructural transformation. We're also building the Infectious Disease Research Center so that we can investigate, we can be prepared, we can carry out the surveillance that Professor Shibogun so importantly alluded to, so that we're not caught unawares. You can see the amount of research that's going on around the world in terms of COVID. We need intelligence to be able to manage these kinds of pandemics. We can't just be sitting ducks, waiting for variants to come and waiting for all kinds of things to happen to us. We need to know ahead of time what's happening, and that kind of scientific intelligence is important for policymakers. And as you rightly alluded to, we're going into the digital age. It's important that we transform our landscape, the way the world is going, and that we can move information around faster, we can protect information, and we can use that information as a means of planning and resource distribution. I wanted to just comment on the way forward. The way forward between the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Physical Planning, as we rightly heard from the comment that we just got from the audience, Ministry of Justice, the One Health strategy, which we've been trying to push. We got sidetracked by COVID because all our energy went into trying to bring COVID under control, but myself and the Honorable Commissioner of Environment, Mr. Tunji Bello, and my colleague from Agriculture and Physical Planning, I think it's so important that we get on with this One Health agenda. We've already done the legal review, we've reviewed our laws, we're ready to submit a biosecurity One Health policy and law to the House of Assembly so that these ministries can actually come together on a legal framework and start to plan what Her Highness was alluding to. We can't keep talking, it's time for action. The last point that was made by my colleague here around inbound migration, I think we have to be realistic about this. London is a megacity. You can't move into London and just decide you're moving to London for nothing. You have to have a reason why you're going to London. There must be a reason why you're staying in London. You must be a contributor to the economic well-being of London. There is no space in Lagos for somebody that is not coming here for a reason and coming here to contribute to the well-being of Lagos State. And I think the digital technology is going to help us with that. You cannot just drift into Lagos without an address, no job, no home, no means of livelihood, and say that you're contributing to the economy of Lagos State. It's not acceptable. And I think we have the capacity to retard it. Lagos must be an unwelcome place for people that have nothing to contribute to Lagos State. It's not a matter of being a Nigerian. It's a matter of economics, security, and well-being. I can't go to Imo State and suddenly, say, I'm here. What can you do with me? No. I have to have a job. I have to be going somewhere. I have to have a house. I have to have a means of livelihood and sustaining myself. And so we can't just sit back and watch this phenomenon. Otherwise, we're going to change from a mega city to a mega slum. And I don't think that's the idea. Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu is very emphatic about the mandate, making Lagos State a modern mega city, a smart mega city. And that's something that we must remember as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. That closing remark seems to be a good one, that we do not want to turn Lagos from a mega city into becoming a mega slum. I think we will take that as a takeaway, that whatever we're doing, what our recommendation will be, what would not allow Lagos to turn from a mega city into a mega slum. Let me thank everybody for being here. In fact, we need to specially recognize our host, the Honorable Commissioner for Environment, Mr. Tunji Bello, for joining us this morning and for being here. You are our host, so you've been here with us since yesterday. Please, let's give Mr. Tunji Bello a round of applause. Thank you very much, sir. The Honorable Rotimi Abiru, too, is in the room, the Chairman, House Committee on Environment. Thank you also for joining us and for being here. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hand over to the MC, but I believe the MC will be having some announcements as he leads us to have a tea break, or maybe there is a slight change in the program. But the MC, over to you.
Let's appreciate our rapporteur, Professor Babajide Alo. Honorable Commissioner for Health, we thank you, sir. Professor Akin Oshibogun, thank you very much, sir. The other discussant, Dr. Nkechi, we appreciate you. We'll have a group photograph. The Honorable Member and Chairman House Committee on Health, the Honorable Commissioner, as well as the Special Advisor will join them. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much. We'll now... Please, okay.